Hey everyone, thank you for joining me in this lovely Yin Yoga practice. We will be focusing today on our lovely hip area. Often an area that we find a lot of tension, a lot of heat. We get quite frustrated when we work into this particular part of our bodies, so take it easy. You may want to have a bolster or some cushions, and I like to use a blanket when I'm working on a solid floor for our last pose. You don't need to have a blanket, but why not have a little extra bit of comfort in your life? Always recommended. So we're going to start our practice by shifting our blanket off to one side and coming into a comfortable wide knee child pose position. So your knees can go as wide as you would like them to. Toes together, and bringing your bolster into the center. Now, as we bring our body down, we lay our chest onto the bolster, and your head can turn one direction, or you can have the head facing down. And allowing there to be a gentle opening of your hips. If you need a little bit of a wiggle here to begin with, you can. Particularly if you're very flexible, just go easy on yourself. And if you're very tight, you might want to slowly edge your body into some of these shapes. We'll just connect to our breathing. Perhaps feeling the belly gently push into our support. We'll take another breath here. And then rising up nice and steady, we'll draw our bolster forward, and we can either have the bolster in front. Maybe you might want to have a bit of cushioning underneath your knees for this position. Again, as I said, I always like a little bit of softness. You don't have to. The hands can come onto our support, and we'll step our right foot to the outside of the mat. So just for a visual cue, we're coming outside, a little bit wider than the shoulder. And from this position, we can sink the hips in a little bit. You might be perfectly happy on your hands, and just notice that stretch to begin with in your left hip flexor, and work in gently. We're here for a couple of minutes, so we've got time to work in a bit deeper if we need to. Focus on what is the feeling. What is that feeling that I'm getting? And where can it be felt? If you want to come down onto your forearms, you can, to increase the stretch. But personally for me, particularly today, I quite like just being up on my hands. You can always drop your head, or equally, you can keep it upright. And notice if the sensation starts to intensify, so increase or decrease. And just because the sensation may decrease in intensity, doesn't mean we have to go deeper into the pose. We can just stay where we feel it. Keep it on an interesting level as opposed to having to always be difficult, hard, forced. Can we just stay interested in the feeling? We'll take one more breath here. Then very slowly just push back, gently coming out. And we'll draw the left knee down so it's sort of towards the left edge of your mat. And you can slide the right leg away. Personally, I would move this off to the side, or you can place it underneath your right butt cheek to give you a little extra help there for height. And you can turn your bolster so that it's there for you to fall into in your pigeon position. Now, if this feels really intense on your knee, you can bend your back knee, coming into deer shape. So we're still getting some stretching going on in the hip region, a little bit less load on the front leg, and you can fold the weight forward. Now, I know that it's quite nice for some people who are very flexible to have that full right angle position with your leg, but just be aware, this is quite a vulnerable shape for your hip. So loading that then with your body weight is incredibly intense. So we don't necessarily need that level of intensity. We're still going to get a gorgeous, lovely stretch by keeping the foot drawn in towards the hip. So play with where the leg placement feels the best for you. All our bodies are going to be different. And you can either come down onto our bolster, we're sharing one apparently, or you can just allow the body to rest into the ground. I really am, at the moment, I'm loving the comfort and support of my bolsters and my cushions. I'm a sucker for that softness and snuggling in. Even though I might be able to go deeper into a shape, it feels sometimes really nice to not go as deep and have the support. But listen to where you are at the moment. Listen to what the experience is that you want to explore. And let yourself visit that. Hips can feel quite hard to unravel, to sit with some of the discomfort, so take it slow. And if we find following the sensation just too much, you can revisit your breathing, or you can take your mind somewhere happy and joyful, safe and secure. We don't always have to visit the most present, in the moment sensations if they become too much for us to really absorb. Celebrating those little goals, those little steps, is important in our practice. Knowing when actually, okay, I'm done, and being able to back away. I've got one final breath here. Now ease your way out of this pose, slow. You might need to come all the way up and just slide that leg back. So the right knee is going to come in front of the left, and we can draw the left knee to join the right. Feet will go wide. Now you can bring your support or a cushion or something you have onto the floor behind you and sit onto that support into your shoelace position. I'm fully aware that shoelace is not for everybody. So if you're here and your bum is floating and you can feel a stretch in your hips, this is great. There's nothing wrong with being here. You can even bob back and forward if that feels interesting enough, and just explore a bit of the sensation, and then find a spot where you think, yeah, I can be there for a few moments. I can stay there. You can also place a pillow or a bolster or something underneath the knees to give that feeling, softness under the knees. As well, you can be up here with that as well, under the knees. And you may discover that you'd quite like to fold forward, maybe. And if that feels good, go for it. Start to fold your body in. Feel the intensity. This is quite a strong external rotation of the hips. So wherever we might be in our bodies today, whatever we might be feeling, and just be gentle. We don't need to go any more intense than what this feels. Can you use your breathing here to help soothe some of the tension? And can we sit with some of that discomfort? You'll hit a point where the discomfort is enough for you to handle, and we're building on that tolerance of being able to sit with discomfort. If we go too far, if we take it too far, we'll stop being able to really cope with the discomfort and it will just become stressful. So there's that fine line between having enough stress in your body that we grow from it and having too much and that it becomes detrimental. And honestly, yoga is a practice, so some days you might be like, yeah, I definitely went a bit too far. Other days you're like, well, I didn't really go far enough. So it's a practice, so be patient with yourself. Let's see if we can endure one final breath in this position. I really did used to hate this pose. I actually quite enjoy it now. It feels quite good, bad pain, you know what I mean? So we'll slowly ease the body out, nice and steady. And we can just unravel the legs, maybe give them a shake, wiggle them around a little bit, and we'll come back into our lizard lunge on the other side. So you can have your blanket underneath your knees for extra support, bolster or pillow at the top of your mat, and step the left foot to the outside. Sinking in. Go in slowly, so if you're very flexible, it might be really easy for you to just sink into it, but maybe just back off a little and take a little journey of discovery as we slide into this position. We've got time to explore the depth of the pose, so we don't need to go in so quick, so fast, so deep. We can stay somewhere where actually it feels okay. And you might want to come down onto your forearms. You might find that that feels interesting. Actually, this side feels a little nicer for me on my forearms than my hands. So we're always just discovering these new ways of being with our bodies. Just listening in and letting your body shift and move and slide as it wants to. In our yoga practice, we're working with connective tissue, fascia, as well as working with muscle and joints. And you can join me for some of my other fascia releasing stretches and fascia ball work. But what we're trying to unravel is the connections from the whole area of the body, not just one part, but feeling everything starting to move in as one. So it might be there's a little bit of tension in one area which is preventing other areas from moving more freely. And we're just in our yin practice here, finding some of those blockages, potentially allowing them to ease open. So let's gradually, again, if we're on our elbows, just slowly come back up onto our hands. We're going to make our way into Pigeon, bringing the knee down about either mat distance or maybe behind the left wrist. I forgot what my wrist was called then. And we'll either just slide the right leg back. I like to turn the bolster so that it's lengthways and drop onto the bolster for support. Again, you can always take deer pose by bending the back right knee so that you're sat onto that left hip and then shifting your weight forward. Again, work with what your body needs. We can get very, very strict on alignment in yoga. And for good reason. We want to have as good a posture as possible for our bodies, but we're also vastly different, and we've all had different experiences. We might have had injuries in some way, so this pose feels too compressed on the knee. We might need to give some more support underneath that hip. Making adjustments that work for your body shape, the day that you're practicing, the feelings that you're arriving with is really important. That although I might be a yoga teacher, I'm also working with my own limitations, and we are really our best teacher for ourselves. Our teachers are there to guide us and allow us, give us the permission really to go, okay, I know what's best for me. So checking in and feeling in. Let's take a final breath here. Slowly, gently, we make our way back up. And we'll again slide the back leg a bit further forward. Left knee is going to cross over right, and the feet will go out wide. So remember your options. You can sit onto a cushion behind you. You can just bob back and forward. You can sit all the way to the ground and place something underneath the knees, or you can stay sat upright in shoelace, maybe folding forward. Maybe. It might feel nicer to actually sit upright, or might feel more intense to sit upright. And we check in with the body. What can we feel? Where can we feel it? The beauty of being human, I find, is that we're not symmetrical. And actually we have so many different varieties of sensation on different sides of our body. And this can be just down to the way we walk, the way we carry our bag, the amount that we use one side over the other. So many different reasons make us asymmetric. And I love that. This obsession with us having to kind of reach some sort of perfection or balance exactly the same each side, it's not really real life. And we know it, we know that, but it can be quite hard to actually practice being imbalanced and what that might be like. Now, our practice in Yin is not about pushing through. I'm not really a fan of the idea of pushing to your edge. I don't think the edge, for me, in Yin, is the safest place to be. I mean, I think of the edge as being like the edge of a cliff. I'm going to fall off the edge of the cliff. So back up a little bit. There is plenty of things to explore before we've even reached the edge. So allowing there to be that open-minded exploration at all the different levels of the posture, not just, well, I can get deeper into this, so I'm going to push, push, push. We'll take one final breath. And then ease your way back up. Unravel the legs. Maybe let them go a little wider and give them a shake out. Final pose we're going to do today together. Froggy pose. Now, frog can be quite a challenge. I really love this position and I used to really hate it. But I'm going to give you the option, if this is not a pose for you today, you can come onto the back and you can come into the supine variation. So allowing the knees to be relatively in line with the hips. You can place your hands to the inner thighs if you want extra weight onto the legs. You can flex the feet if you want to. You can even place your hands underneath your knees if you want that support there. This is the same variation we're going to do, but we're using a different force of gravity. So if you want to do the expression of frog that I'm going to teach you now, I would highly recommend Kate wanting some softness. I like to have a blanket under my knees, and this is not just because I like softness, this is because my knees can be a little bit sensitive, so I like to have cushioning for the knees. Bring in a bolster or lots of cushions for you, and we'll start by bringing the toes together, bum to the heels. Now, I like to practice by lifting the pelvis up and placing it onto the support, letting my knees slide out as wide as they can go. So once I feel the pelvis is grounded, I can then drop onto the forearms. And you can stay here. This is a great position to feel the hips opening quite deeply. But the good thing about having a support underneath you is it prevents you from just sliding out so far that it's like hard to come back from. You want to be able to come out of this pose at some point as well. Now, if you want to go a little bit further with the position, you can flex your feet and slide the ankles out in line with the knees. So what tends to happen when we do this is we shift the weight forward because it's quite uncomfortable. See if you can keep pushing the weight slightly back, and this will increase the intensity in the hip external rotation. Breathe. Now make sure that you've got enough height, so depending on how flexible your hips are, you might be at more of an angle like this. So you may be slightly more of a kind of slant down towards your chest, and that's absolutely fine. We're listening to our own bodies and what our own bodies are able to do. The forearms are great for support as well, so I'm pushing slightly into my forearms just so I can push back a little bit. And then waiting for the sensation to talk, the body to be heard as we're experiencing this pose. Now, if the body screams for help, like this is too much, know that you can listen to that. You do not have to sit here and suffer. You can always bring the toes together. You can always shift the weight forward if you need to. We don't have to stay here and suffer in silence. So your body knows what it needs. It's our job to listen to our bodies and respond with compassion. And sometimes it's like, do you know what? You're okay. You're just not liking this stretch, but it feels okay. And we're learning how to be with this discomfort. Other times it might be literally no, you need to come out right now. And that's also okay. If you do slide a bit deeper into this pose, and it feels kind of organic, great. But if you feel yourself sliding too fast, it might mean that you actually need a bit more support under the pelvis. I wouldn't want this pose to be one of those positions where, like, some people get stuck in saddle pose. If you know, you know, and you can't get back out again. It's like you drop yourself in, you go, oh, I'm in. But we really do need to find a way to ease ourselves out, which we're going to do in about 30 seconds time, I promise. So just keep that breath moving. You can always come out of these poses at any point. So here we go. To shift forward is how we're going to come out. So we're going to shift the weight forward and let the legs slide back. And I think just relaxing onto the bolster with the belly and the pelvis and letting the legs behind you feels a lovely sensation of release. And then to finish off our practice, let's come and rest. Let's take a bit of time to rebalance all that energy, that movement, that shifting we've done. You can bring your bolster under your knees. You can lie onto your back. And take a good few moments to, let go. Keeping warm and safe. You might even want to wrap yourself up a little bit with a blanket particularly around the hip area. And I'll let you know when it's time to rise out of this position. Slowly taking a deep breath in and out, and perhaps just moving. If you want to stay here longer, by all means you can, or just wiggling your body out of stillness. We can roll off to one side and pause in a fetal position, and then slowly lift the body up to seated. We'll finish our practice together with just one final stretch. So allow yourself to come into a comfortable seat. Sweep the arms up to the sky, take a lovely stretch all the way to the tips of the fingers. The palms will close together as we allow them to drift to the heart center. Just gently bow your head forward. Find some gratitude for your practice today. And thank you for joining me.